Hi, I'm Keel Johnson. Welcome to Play Politics. I would like to welcome Vincent Scott. Vincent is an active member of the Fairfax County Republican Committee, and Terrence Stroman. Terrence is the host of The Inconvenient Truth. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Welcome.
It's good to see you.
Good to be back.
Just recently, Reed O'Connor, the federal judge from Texas, ruled Obamacare unconstitutional. This was based on its mandate requiring that people buy health insurance. This decision could eventually reach the Supreme Court. Republicans have opposed this law since the beginning, and they have tried and failed to repeal it. The mandate required that most Americans obtain health insurance or pay a tax penalty. The entire law, they say, is unconstitutional. Why are Republicans happy about the ruling, and why are Democrats not happy about the ruling? Could you explain a little bit of that, Vincent?
Well, the obvious reason for the Republicans is that they've been able to do away with something via the court that they weren't able to do away with via legislation. The Democrats are unhappy about it because they've lost their signature legislation from the Obama era. Now, I think they're both going to find themselves with mixed feelings on it, though, as it evolves. The Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, isn't the issue that it used to be 3 years ago.
Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. People have started to like elements more of the Affordable Care Act than they thought they would. They like that it's transportable. They like the fact that pre-existing conditions are covered with it. And on the other side of the coin, there's not that many people on Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act as there originally were. A couple of reasons for that is the expanding economy. People have jobs. People are getting their medical care through their work benefit. Also, something that came along with the Affordable Care Act was the expansion of Medicaid in states. If you're on Medicaid, you're not on Obamacare.
Right.
And the other thing is when they lost the mandate through the tax changes of 2017, people don't have to buy it anymore. So the younger folks, the younger healthy folks, just aren't investing in it. So the issue for both the Democrats and the Republicans has changed a great deal than when Obamacare was first passed into law, and everyone was either deliriously happy or completely upset with it. They're all somewhere in the middle now.
I think a lot of people, though, are really concerned about the pre-existing conditions. If this is overturned, Terrence, do you think that a new law would keep the pre-existing conditions?
I don't think so. Well, I would say this. we just came out of midterms, and one of the message pieces from my Republican colleagues was pre-existing conditions will stay, and that was going to be a part of Trump care. But let's get back to where we at now with Obamacare. And Vincent, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Probably in the last 24 months, this whole thing, since the last time we shot and we talked about Obamacare, even some on the right have started to have to see what their constituents are talking about Obamacare or Affordable Care Act. The pre-existing conditions, if you don't have Affordable Care Act and you don't have insurance, and you have to go ahead and deal with the private sector, and you have pre-existing conditions, you're not getting insurance, or you're going to pay an extremely high premium. And so many people dogged Obamacare because it was Obama's fault, that people in Kentucky, where it's expanding now with Medicaid, is expanding here in Virginia with another 400,000 people going to be on Medicaid. The educational piece with it being, I think the thing that made people that's Americans that didn't understand, if they would have known it was the Affordable Care Act instead of just being that stain of being Obamacare, because it was the one major thing that Obama did, instead of seeing what was the good in it. And Obama tried. He asked every time. He said, if you got something you want to add to it, add to it. But just the same way we're seeing with Trump, we're seeing that nobody wants to come to the middle. And on, like you said, Vincent, both sides gonna have to do something with this, because even the Republicans now are seeing that there's a lot of people in their constituents from West Virginia, from the coal mining, that need the Affordable Care Act, that don't have insurance. The people that the students that you spoke of earlier, that can stay on their parents' insurance until they're 26, that will be gone.
Right.
Me being a former student, if I can stay on my parents' insurance until I'm 26, that would be great. I mean, 21 is totally different 5 years. If you don't have to worry about your insurance and you can stay on your parents' insurance until you're 26. Those two major things are two major things I think that even Donald Trump and the right are still now having to worry about, because that's something that is a part of Obamacare and Affordable Care Act that everybody is starting to want to keep, because you don't have that. The private sector is not giving you that.
Right.
And you're going to have to pay high premiums for that. So, and even with the judge now saying it, Chief Justice Roberts ruled when they did have the individual mandate that it was constitutional. Now this judge has come about because they took the individual mandate out in the tax scam, I mean the tax bill of 2017.
Right.
Now he's saying it's unconstitutional. That's the reason why he ruled that. This is not the same Obamacare or Affordable Care Act it was when Obama passed it. Them taking out that individual mandate, making it mandated for you to have it, and that tax penalty has now made it where he's saying that he thinks that it's unconstitutional. And then at the same time, that's still just a federal judge in Texas, where it's still going to have to be it's going to have to get to the Supreme Court. It's going to be appealed by other states. Like, I wouldn't be surprised you see it appealed by Virginia, California, New York, even West Virginia, that have people that's doing the coal mining. They're big fans of the Affordable Care Act. So we'll see where it goes.
California.
Well, especially the coal miners. I'm sorry, Vincent. Especially the coal miners. I can understand why they would be concerned about it, based on what they do for a living. But there's so many people that have pre-existing conditions. I think it's hard to find someone that doesn't have a pre-existing condition.
Especially if you're over the age of 50.
Yes.
I mean, it can, diabetes, I don't even want to go through the list of what it can, and this is where the Affordable Care Act is really meant for, people over 50 and for younger people. Those are two people that are bringing it down. If you don't have those two, the ones that's in between, that's like my age, that's late 20s to late 30s, early 40s, you might have a job that's paying for your health insurance.
Right.
But if you're just getting out of high school and you're going to college, or you're over 50, this is where the Affordable Care Act comes into play for you.
Right.
And those are the people that's going to be affected the most by the Obamacare. And if you're over 50, I don't really know too many Americans that don't have a pre-existing, now it might not be a major condition, but it is a pre-existing condition that could be, that could make it kind of affect you going into the private sector trying to find insurance.
Vincent, I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to concur with that. I heard just this morning, California is already appealing this initial Texas judge's ruling. So the other thing I wanted to offer in line with what Terrence was saying, the part of this that the Republican Party doesn't like is the fact that they now have to legislate. They can't just let the Affordable Care Act be determined to be unconstitutional and nothing replace it. And they're going to have to work with the Democratic House of Representatives that takes office in January. So what's going to be interesting for me is we're going to watch this court battle play out, the challenge, the appeals, and it will get up to the Supreme Court. But there better be something going on in the Congress between the House of Representatives and the Senate while that is all going on, so that there is a plan B for the American people. Let's say that the Supreme Court says yes, they lost the tax mandate out of that, so the reason that we ruled it constitutional, it's unconstitutional. Well, that means something's got to replace it.
Exactly.
Because we can't go, the American population would not be satisfied with going back to the way it was before the Affordable Care Act. So the Republicans and the majority in the Senate, the Democratic majority in the House of Representatives better be getting their heads together in the interim and have a plan ready to put on the table that that would pass.
Do you think that will happen? Or how long do you think it would take for that to happen while we're sitting on the edge of our seats?
Well, another piece of information I got this morning, that let's say that it made it to the Supreme Court within the next week or two. The Affordable Care Act's still good and funded through 2019. So they've got 1 year. If the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional, say July of 2019, they would have until December, because it's already paid for. It's already, people already have policies.
Right.
They just won't disappear. So that means that they've got 1 year, basically the entirety of 2019, to put something in its place.
I don't.
If they don't do it, I think everyone in the House of Representatives and the Senate will be voted out on their next term, Republican or Democrat.
Both of them, whoever's going to be up in 2020, better be having some type of plan. Because I think this is the one major thing. This is the reason why so many people was voted in through Congress, and so many people kept their seats in the Senate.
Right.
Is because the ones that was pro universal health care or the Obamacare, and if you notice, it went from being against the Obamacare in 14 when we came back again after 2010, when it was everybody was running against Obamacare. Now you have to come with some type of plan. Where even when John McCain gave him the famous thumbs down, the repeal and replace, that was no plan. That was just, we just going to run it on, we just going to get rid of Obamacare. 2 years, this ain't even 2 years.
Without having anything.
You got to have some type of plan, because now people, health insurance is probably the #1 debt, put you in debt.
Right.
Is if you don't have great quality health insurance.
Right.
I mean, especially if you have some type of pre-existing condition. If you get the wrong diagnosis, you can literally be broke and go bankrupt as a family. So
Something that
And
we
die.
might
Let's not forget that.
and die. Yeah.
Something that we might look forward to, though, if this, in fact, as I predict, does push the Republicans and Democrats to get their heads together and get a plan ready to go, it will be a bipartisan plan.
It has to.
Whatever comes out, it's not going to have, it'll have some negativity to it along with the positives to it, but it won't have the ardent negativity from one party completely against it and one party completely for it. Whatever comes from this will have to be bipartisan, and it has to come.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, when we talked last time, Republicans had the House and the Senate. This time around, the Democrats have Congress and Republicans have the Senate.
Right.
This is going to be a test. Besides all the investigations that's going on with Trump, can he also try to bring both sides together to get this? Because what he got voted in for to where he's trying to do 2020 has totally changed on Obamacare.
And that is going to be an issue. Trump doesn't even listen to his own aides before he starts talking. So it'll be interesting to see.
There's a lot going on over there. I'll just say that much.
Yeah. Let's talk about Trump threatening another government shutdown unless Democrats give him what he wants.
The wall.
The wall.
The wall.
The wall. And money. He met with congressional Democratic leaders Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Trump wants $5 billion to build the wall intended to keep undocumented immigrants out of the U.S. But Congress is not certain to grant it to him. I do want to find out what your stand is on having immigrants come into this country. How do you stand on that?
You asking me? I'm all for legal immigration.
Right.
I'm all against illegal immigration in any form. I'm kind of a rule of law guy. When it comes to the wall, I can tell you that I believe the wall would make a difference. I don't believe it would make the difference that the Republicans say it will make, but it would make a difference. Every place that we've put a wall, San Diego, parts of Arizona and parts of Texas, it has made a significant difference. That little show that Trump and Pelosi and Schumer put on,
Yeah.
oh my God, that was an MMA fight without the cage.
Yeah.
That was great television.
Schumer, he actually controlled that show. That was good.
Well, I don't want to disagree with you, but I'm going to give you a data point that I got this morning.
Go ahead.
There was a company called Malinsky and Partners. They're a media research firm that tracks video engagements with people and see who likes it and who doesn't like it and all that. And for that little demonstration, the Democrats gave Trump an F, the Republicans gave Trump an A, and independents gave Trump a C.
Interesting.
For Pelosi, the Democrats gave Pelosi an A, they gave Trump an F, and the independents gave it a B for Pelosi. But for Schumer, the Democrats only gave him a B. The Republicans gave him an F, and the independents only gave him a C. So
Did they say why?
no, they didn't say why. Okay. There was no interview of the people that were actually taking the survey other than watching their reaction to it. But of the three of them, they found Trump and Pelosi to be equal sparring partners, but they had they didn't care too much for Schumer. My guess is that the folks like the Democrats that only gave him a B thought he didn't fight back hard enough. Really? Didn't give it to Trump as good as Trump was giving it to him. He kind of bowed his head and he kind of shook his head a little bit. So I'm guessing the Democrat low grade for Schumer was because it wasn't what he said, it's that he didn't say enough. Just my guess.
Did they have a grade for Mike Pence?
No, actually they didn't. He didn't say a word during this thing. So
I mean, I thought it was the one thing I like what Schumer said that he told Trump that elections have consequences. And he's been saying that for a while, especially since Hillary Clinton lost. He's been saying elections have consequences. And I think that the one thing that Trump is starting to know, and I don't even know if Trump really wanted to be president. I think once he couldn't become an NFL owner, he was like, what else do I want to do? And he became the president of the United States. So now he's starting to figure out that when you become a public figure, especially a public politician, everything is open. It is no secrets. Everybody is looking towards you. And I think now that he's starting to see that, and then especially with all the stuff that comes with Trump. Now you're starting to, I mean, New York is after Trump like nobody else. I keep telling people, everybody talk about Miller. The state of New York is just as much after Trump for everything. He hasn't been back to New York since he became president. So it seems like New York is just as much after him as the Democrats are, or Mueller is looking for him for this Russia investigation or whatever it may be. So all those type of things, and like Schumer said, I think Schumer is to a point that now once he found out that he had a little control with Congress being there, and Nancy Pelosi is in a position of power now. She knows in what 2 weeks, 3 weeks, she'll be in a position of power, and even Schumer knows that now we have one part, and it's only 53 to 47 with the Senate, and we'll be voting again in 2 years with some critical stuff with Obamacare. That we're starting to see that this tax scam was what it was. So a lot of people that was voted in, that's in the Senate, is about to be now, we could see the Senate turn, and it was a tremendous changing of the guard in the Congress. I mean, they flipped almost 40 seats, so they're gonna have to flip a whole lot more to get it back in 2020 with the ones that's jumping up. Whereas the Senate, it's much closer where we might can see 48 to 49 Democratic, especially if some of this stuff that doesn't get legislated, or we start seeing people getting pushed through nominations with no filibuster now because it's 53. Don't have to wait for Mike Pence. So if they get every Republican, anybody they nominate can get through. So I think you're seeing Pelosi with a little more power, and you're seeing Schumer with a little more. He's been saying it for a while. Elections have consequences. This is not the private sector. This is the public sector, and you're going to be held accountable on all type of levels of it. And I just think that Schumer was allowing Donald to speak himself into whatever he thinks that is. If that's his grave or is it into another water that he's gonna have to swim out of, he's allowing Donald to talk. And Donald, for just in that segment, he said one time, it was on you that took it. I'll own it if it's a government shutdown. No, it's on you. He kept going. He never could find his thing, and that's when the aides were getting mad that he went on with that. Because once Donald Trump gets to talking, you never can keep him on target.
He goes all over the
He goes all over the
place.
place.
He does,
and that's what makes it so much fun.
Calculated that he doesn't stay on target?
I think he really don't. I think he's really a businessman that's in a public sector that really doesn't want to be in politics the way he knows that politics have to be in.
Do you think he'll get elected again? Do you think he's going to be impeached?
No, I don't. My thing is this: if he doesn't get impeached, who on the other side do we have that can win?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not if something doesn't come of the Russia investigation, we're already seeing that Stormy Daniels and the chicks don't. It's kind of. Some people care for it, some people don't care for it. But who on the other side, I haven't seen. Now, they will start hearing, it'll probably look like how the Republican was last year when in 2016 we had like 16 or 18 people ready to vie for the position. After Obama coming in 2000, she had like 16 nominees that was coming. You'll probably have something similar to that in the Democratic Party. Probably have 10 to 12, maybe 14 people. You start hearing people like Mike Bloomberg going to run. It's somebody different every time. So who's going to be that person that's going to dethrone him if it's not something outside of the Democratic nominee? I just don't see it.
Well, I mean, you've kind of transitioned to impeachment.
Yes.
If Trump is impeached, Pence becomes president.
Exactly.
Only elections change the party that's in the presidency, unless you impeach.
It takes a while to impeach a president, though.
It does. The impeachment thing is a sideshow.
Exactly.
You can vote articles of impeachment in Congress. When the Democratic Congress comes into being, they can vote articles of impeachment with a simple majority. But they do not do the prosecution. The prosecution moves to the Senate. And to be found guilty in the Senate, you have to have a 2/3 majority. There is no way Trump gets impeached. You can talk about it, they can talk about it, they can beat their drum all they want, and it's just not going to happen. It's not statistically.
There's going to have to be something shown that comes out of nowhere where Republicans.
Oh yeah, for the things that are on the table today. That's what I'm saying. I mean, if a significant felony or criminality or something is demonstrated, I would take that back. But I'm talking about this campaign finance stuff that they're throwing around. Not a chance they're going to impeach on. Congress, a few people in Congress, I think Congressman Al Green already brought it to the floor, impeachment 2 or 3 months ago, and there was only 34 members of Congress that voted yay on it then, and there was 185 Democrats in the room, and they wouldn't even vote on it. So,
and is that because they didn't have any proof? They couldn't really prove anything?
Right.
You didn't want to have that. You didn't want to go into midterms with that on your head that you voted for the impeachment. You gotta wait. Like I said earlier, it has to be something substantial. It can't be this porn star. Everybody knew Donald Trump was a con before he came in.
Right.
This is his third wife. I mean, I don't know why we thought that he was gonna be this evangelical. I mean, he's not a pastor. No, but he's been. He was the birther movement. I mean, he has been a liar since. So, I mean, how many Republicans have come out and said everybody do something with fine? That's in the Senate. From Mitch McConnell to Cassidy. I mean, how many people have said this is not a nothing? You can get all of us on campaign finance if you wanted to. He even brought up Obama having a campaign finance. And if you want to bring up with women with it, man, you probably get everybody that's elected in there. So they're not going to do it for that.
If they bring up campaign finance as something as an impeachable offense and write the articles of impeachment on that out of the House of Representatives, I can tell you exactly what Donald Trump's going to do. He's going to release every congressman that's ever paid off any lady or person for harassment or for anything else, either with that congressional slush fund or out of their own pocket, and he's going to have the FEC look in and say, did they claim that as a campaign contribution? That when they paid those people off, he will flip it on, there's what, 465 members of Congress? Well, 400 of them probably have something that they don't want, that's in the closet they don't want coming out.
Right.
Impeachment's not going to happen.
Especially not on no porn star. It's gonna have to be something that comes, a smoking gun that either Mueller has, or something else that comes about. I mean, I just
Especially
don't see
if, well, Trump paid off with his own money to do that, you know, to quiet those girls. So
nobody. I mean, to be honest, they don't. Especially the people that are Trumpeteers don't care.
right.
And especially the Republican majority of the Senate want to have at least two of those three bodies. You have the executive branch and you got the Senate. We can still get stuff done, especially maybe you can still get judges through. You can still appoint nominees. Congress is going to make it difficult to legislate things, but especially for the next 2 years, they can still get. They've been getting a lot of judges through. People just not understanding how many judges in the judiciary changed in the last 18 months. Mitch McConnell has been sending them through. And as long as he has that, he's going to allow that to come through because then he can get it signed by Donald Trump. Point blank period.
There's been 85 federal judges appointed since Donald Trump. So
85.
85. I looked it up this morning.
That's a lot. I didn't even look
That
at it. I
is
just know it was a
I
lot.
didn't know that, yeah.
But right, the impeachment thing, there's still going to be those people out there beating their chest, impeachment, because it gets them some TV airtime. But I got to tell you, our original discussion of this evening was the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. There are bigger fish to fry in the United States Congress than campaign finance and Trump slapping girls on the backside.
No, you're right. You're right. Do you think well, we're actually almost out of time. We'll have to save this for another show. I was going to ask you if you thought the fact that the economy has gotten better is enough to make people, you know, not worry about all that other stuff, you know, as long as there's jobs coming in. But that's for another show. So that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank Terrence and I'd like to thank Vincent for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time for another edition of Play Politics. Take care. That's good.
Yeah.
Good debate, man. That was always good
Good
seeing
show.
Thanks for
Good show.
coming.
Good show.
Thanks for coming.
No problem.
We will need to get into that in the next show.
Into which one?
Are we done?
The
Is it still
economy
recording?
issue,
Yes.
because that's a good
Absolutely.
point.
Still recording.
That's